We have important elements that we have to consider when we design buildings. The first one is the building regulations. The second one is the building codes. Now, building regulations, they are different for each zone, and you have to understand the regulations that are applied to your particular land, and this is usually attached to the land acquisition or land assignment. And it tells you how many floors, how many square meters you can build, the setbacks, and it provides you with all the information required for the building regulations. Another thing is the building codes. Building codes are extremely important for the construction industry, and they have to be followed very closely. So this assignment will allow you to indulge very lightly into the building codes of Saudi Arabia and how to know them and understand them. So each one of you will be assigned a small part of building codes, and you are required to read it and summarize it in very, very briefly in 1 or 2 pages, and write your reflections on how would these building codes impact the design of your building. So you are required to write maximum 2 pages, maximum, no more than 2 pages, on one of the building code chapters that will be assigned to you, and submit this to the Blackboard at the end of the day. This assignment should not take more than 3 to 4 hours or 5 hours maximum. So the writing quality, the coverage of the chapter, and the punctuality of submission is important. So submission on time is extremely important. This is the rubric. You will find it attached to the site. Building codes in Saudi Arabia are composed of several documents. And these documents, they cover each type of work that is related to the construction of buildings. So we have the general codes, we have the codes for construction, the electric codes, mechanical codes, energy codes, plumbing codes, and sanitary codes, and firefighting codes. So these are the documents that are available, and I will share them with you on the Blackboard that you can look at on your own time. We will not be able to cover all these documents, but you should be able to reach them, find information in them at any time. So this is an important part of your work as an architect. What we will focus on in our assignment is the general building codes. These general building codes are also made of part of the list of codes that we have here, and this is the first part of the codes, the first document in the codes. We call the general building codes. So on the general building codes, they cover different aspects. There is, of course, an introduction about the application, definitions. These are very important to read and understand. What is the definition of the terms used, and then how do we have different building types according to use and occupation. So it tells you about the building types. I have the assembly types, business buildings, educational, factory, high-rise, institutional, mercantile, residential, storage. So here, this chapter 3, it tells you about how do we differentiate or think about different building types. And then that gives you the detailed requirements for the use and occupation of the building for also different building types: shopping malls, high-rise, atriums, underground buildings, and all these elements. And then it tells you about the heights and areas for these buildings. How do you think about the height and the number of floors, the mezzanine floors, the areas, and so forth. And then the types of construction, and how do you select the materials for the non-combustible materials. And then how do we protect these buildings from fire and smoke. You see that the document is very detailed regarding everything in the building. The interior finishings, the firefighting systems, the egress or escape from the buildings, the accessibility. How do we access the buildings, the energy, the exterior walls? So that it's very detailed for everything related to the building. Everything has its own code. And then it talks about the different materials: aluminum, brickwork, steel, wood, glass, gypsum boards, plastics, electricity, mechanical, plumbing, elevators and conveyor systems, special construction, and safety, and other things. So this document alone is 628 pages. طبعا we cannot cover all this, and you don't need to know everything or remember everything that's written there, but you should always be able to reach the information when you need it. So this is important for you to have. So for our purpose, for this assignment, we will focus only on very small parts of the codes. This is the chapter 3 in the general codes, and it covers the definition of the structures as we have. So each one of you will be assigned one of these elements. So this is 3.4 business buildings, 3.5 educational, 3.8 institutional, 3.9 commercial or mercantile and residential, and shopping malls and high-rise structures and atriums and cinemas and theaters. So each one of you will be assigned. I will send you the assignment that you are required to work on individually, and you start to work on it. So let's look at these codes. So for example, if you go here, this is the general code. can you see my screen?
Yes,
we
doctor.
can.
Yes, doctor.
Each assignment is like 2 or 3 pages maximum of reading. Yeah. So it's not that long. But يعني the idea is I want you to learn how to reach a code if you need it in your work. And طبعا if you're working on any specific project as a professional architect, the first thing you do is that you should look for the code regulations, of course, and the code of the that is applied on your particular project. So this is the document itself, and طبعا it's a very long document, and you should know about it when you are working in your office. So let's see. This is the third part, and it goes to this is the chapter number 3. It's an interactive document. When you click, it takes you to the chapter directly. So here, this part controls the different building types. So we have different types of buildings, and it defines each one of these buildings and how it is used. If we go to our items, so each item you'll find that it has a مثلا the modes. This is one of the items that we will cover. So here it tells you about what is the mole, what is the definition of the mole, and what is the area. Is it the covered and the open parts of the mole, the exterior buildings of the mole? The mole might not be only one building; it might be several buildings. The parking areas, of course, the fire separation of different areas so that you have protection. How do you separate the rental areas from each other? How do you separate the buildings outside, and so forth? The parking, and if it's an open mall, مثلا يجب أن تكون تجميعات الأرضيات والأسقف مفتوحة في جو مسافة لا تقل عن 6 متر مقاسة من وجهة فراغات التأجير. It tells you about everything that you need to consider in designing the mall. If you don't apply the codes, you will not get permission. You will not get license to start your work. So whenever you start to work on certain projects, you have to go back to the codes and review if anything in the code will affect your design or not. The areas for children, the plastic signs, for everything related to the mall is defined here. Each one of you here we start to talk about the tall buildings. What do we mean by tall buildings? What are requirements to design tall buildings? Different types. طبعا it will be exposed to earthquakes and seismic loads. The walls. All this will be provided in the document that you have. So after finish, I will send you the assignment for each one to work on for today's assignment. So you need to read the part that is assigned to you, summarize it in 1 or 2 pages. You can add a couple of small pictures of shopping malls that you here in Jeddah that illustrates the aspects of the code. If it's a tall building or shopping mall or villa, or think about the type of code that you have. So you don't need to read the whole document. Just skim through it. And if you have time later, you can skim through the other codes. Some they are not architectural, but you also need to get yourself understand what the code is. The general code that applies mostly to us, you need to skim through it. And then find the part that you are assigned and write a brief in English about what is there. And you can use a couple of images of existing buildings as illustration. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear, doctor.